Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today is November 21st here in the United States, 2023. We are on the Kubeflow community call. And I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and that this meeting is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct. Would like to welcome everybody today. We have a pretty good agenda, I think, with a lot of important topics. One of the first things that we have on the agenda is to talk about the steering committee election update. Before we jump into that, I don't believe Daniela is here. Is that correct? We don't have anybody from the release team. Okay. Maybe they'll join later so we can come back to that. Why don't we go ahead and I'd like to get kind of an update on the release. So why don't we start with the steering committee election update. Matthew, I think you may have cut and paste this onto here. I'm not sure if Amber or David are on the phone or here available today, or either one of them here.
It doesn't look like they're here, but that is from Amber, yes.
So for those who are joining, you may not, or you may be aware that we are having elections for the community, and one of the top organizations, part of the organization, is the Kubeflow Steering Committee. There will be an election for 3 new members to be joining the 2 existing members that are active. The 2 existing members that are active are myself and James Wu from Google. So there'll be 3 new members that will be elected. There's a process for this, and there's some systems that are involved. All those are being organized, and we have a schedule here. For those of you that are interested in participating either in voting or to nominate and run, I welcome both of those activities. And you'll need to make sure that you have the eligibility requirements by yesterday. So we probably should make sure that you have those available. Is there anybody here who's planning to run that doesn't know the eligibility requirements?
Wasn't it just 50 active contributions of any kind or something similar?
Yep, it's 50 in the last year. So 50 in the last year from the date yesterday. Presumably.
Is there oh, go ahead, Ricardo.
So just a question, do we have something documented about all of those eligibility requirements, or all the details on what the steering committee is, what are the responsibilities?
Yeah, that's in the governance documents that we were discussing over the last few months. I'll paste them in the doc. Give me a second.
Do you have a particular question, Ricardo?
No, I'm just curious about all the details on the steering committee and all the eligibility requirements.
Yep.
I just don't know where to find.
So you'll find, you know, a lot of this, we've tried to outline it, copy and paste from other organizations, in particular, often the Kubernetes, but we try to keep this fairly lightweight and less. But we try to be as welcoming and make this as open as possible for those who are participating.
So there should be a public link somewhere.
Yeah, we definitely have all that. Matthew said he was looking for it. If you can find it and paste it in there, we'll get it for you, and it'll be in the doc. I'm sure you can find it further down below. I think we've had multiple places where we posted this, right, Matthew? But here, he's got the proposals. He's bringing it up.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much.
Yep. So I guess the big thing is, if I read this right, is it next Monday, the nomination phase opens? And that will run for 14 days. And we'll have a testimonials phase. And then I guess voting starts during the holiday. And will end a little bit before the Martin Luther King holiday. So that's wonderful. I wish this was a little bit more compressed, but I think this is probably a logical schedule. Any comments on the proposed schedule? Anybody? Is the schedule okay? I'm gonna go with lazy consensus and say that this is fine unless someone says. My only comment would be is that this seems to be a fairly long period, and it's during the holidays, so it probably drags it out a little bit further. I would welcome having steering committee members before the end of the year, but that's probably too compressed. I mean, I don't know that we need 2 weeks for nomination phase, and I don't know that we need 2 weeks for the testimonials. I think we could get away with a week for the nomination and a week with the testimonial, and then have the votes and finish up before the Christmas break. But that would be my preference.
Is this based from a different community timeline?
I don't know.
Maybe Amber. Yeah.
Yeah, Amber's not here, and I think that if we don't get her here or get in touch with her quickly, we couldn't change this. But look, if everybody's okay with the schedule, I'd say it's fine.
I'm just looking at the only requirements that the governance document says is that the elections are held annually. 4 weeks before the election, the steering committee appoints officers, which would be Amber in this case. 2 weeks before the election officers call for nominations and publish the list of eligible voters. And so we also put an eligible timeline as well, which is we put a specific timeline, which is that the new committee members have to take office in December. So that is a requirement.
Yeah, I would much rather see voting start the 5th or the 12th and run to the 26th. That would just be my preference.
It does seem like it actually this might, yeah, like technically speaking, the rules do say that they have to take office in December.
All right, I'll reach out to Amber. Let me ask, would anybody be upset if we tried to compress the schedule a little bit and try to make the voting completed by, the end of the month? Or, I mean, I don't want to make people to work at the end of the month, and that's over the holiday. So that's kind of tough. But in the same respect, I think the people that know that they're going to run know that they're running. And, do we need 2 weeks for testimonials? I don't know. Maybe we do. I'm not trying to stop people from being able to get the testimonials out there. Am I trying to push things too fast? Thinking about it, I guess out loud, I'm okay with the schedule if everybody else is okay with the schedule.
Yeah, this time is always, we're a bit closer to the end of the year than we would have we would start it earlier usually. Right, that's my assumption.
Yeah. Okay, sorry to take you on a whirlwind tour of Josh's flip-flopping, but hopefully everybody's okay with the schedule. I'm going to assume lazy consensus unless somebody comes back and says that they are not happy with that. We're going to go with that schedule as it is. moving on now, unless I hear something different. Okay, release 1.8. Again, I think we, as a community, I want to really thank all the contributors, all the working group leads, all the distributions, everyone who contributed there. I think it was a big release was pretty much on time, seemed to be high quality. If this is the only bug, what is this bug here, Matthew? Or is this a...
This is just, I don't really understand if this is a bug or not. I think it is. It's just that existing Kubeflow pipelines. No, it's that. I'm not even sure it's a bug. Like we need confirmation from the pipelines team, which is that it's you can't submit V1 pipelines to the UI anymore.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be tremendous.
Yeah, it's the problem is that, yeah, because we want people to be able to upgrade as smoothly as possible without having to lose compatibility, during the crossover. But hello, someone's got their hand up.
Ricardo, go ahead.
So I discussed with Daniela yesterday, I think. Pretty much summary of this issue is that existing pipelines in V1 after upgrading to 2.03, they stop enabling the start button for those existing pipelines. So that's basically the issue. It's more than an upgrade problem.
I mean, but as soon as they re-upload their pipelines, it's working again. So yes, maybe the upgrade is not smooth, but if the upgrade is already done, you just have to re-upload your pipelines. Maybe we can document it, but I'm not sure whether it's worth fixing. Or maybe that's something that is the responsibility of the distributions.
Sorry, I didn't see who's talking. Who was it?
Oh, sorry. I was just
Julius.
saying as well, it would be hard for the distributions to make a patch without the pipelines team making the fix. Otherwise, it would require them to fork Kubeflow pipelines.
Sorry, I think I lost
In any
the
case,
thread here.
all I'm saying is that we just need the Kubeflow pipelines team to confirm if they're going to fix it or not. If they're not, then documentation is the solution. Otherwise, otherwise they'll fix it. You know what I mean? And then we can decide what to do from there.
I think the
also
question
suspect-
here is what would be acceptable as documenting the issue. Like, we want to just say this is a non-issue, we're going to fix it in a later version, or we'll need to work on a workaround for this issue.
I think it only happens when upgrading. We probably do not need to fix it in a later version because then you are already uploading your pipelines from scratch. Or what do you think?
No, that's not what I understood from Daniela. I mean, from what I got, she had V1 pipelines running with all existing pipelines, and then she upgraded this existing installation to V2, and all the existing pipelines just cannot start any runs. I know that from the SDK side, it's acceptable because there's no compatibility for the SDK, but it's surprisingly that it cannot be done through the UI. So I think it's a breaking change in between V1 and V2.
As long as you can upload new ones, it's less of a breaking change. But I just don't know if you can't upload new ones, then yeah, it's a problem we do need to fix, because the goal is to make people able to migrate to V2, right? But that's what I'm saying. We just need to confirm.
So I'm just trying to get the scope of this. The scope is that this is on V1 pipelines. existing V1 pipelines after you upgrade, they won't run from the UI. Is that?
I think that's the case. I think that's in general the case. It's not just existing ones. I'm fairly sure it's like, so obviously V2 pipelines you can compile with a V2 SDK and run them with the UI or with the SDK. You can also run V1 pipelines through the SDK on the V2. You know, you can use the V1 SDK to submit a V1 pipeline. You can actually also use the V2 SDK to submit a V1 pipeline. It's just a little bit confusing. But the thing that you can't do is kind of important, because it still means that people won't really be able to upgrade if they want to do it in, you know, because what they'll do is they'll do a change to, if they want to adopt V2, they need to be able to run V2 and V1 at the same time, right? That's kind of the goal.
But as far as I understood, you can just upload your V1 pipeline. If you compile your V1 pipeline from scratch with the V1 SDK, you can upload it and you can run it. It just does not work for pipelines which were existing before the upgrade and are V1. So because I ran V1 pipelines with Kubeflow 1.8.
Yeah, but you were probably using the SDK to do that.
No, I was using the graphical user interface as well. So feel free to try out, but this is also what the comments at the end of the issue say, if I remember correctly. You can just re-upload your pipeline, your V1 pipeline, and execute it.
But you have to compile it and then re-upload it? Is that what you said? I just want to make sure I understand.
Probably not even recompile. I used the pipeline compiled several months ago, if I remember correctly. I mean, I can retry on my 1.8 clusters, and you can try as well. But this is also what other people in the issue are saying.
Okay.
Yeah, that does make sense from a logical like coding perspective, because otherwise the bug wouldn't make much sense, right? Like it's probably that the new intermediate representation is what's assumed to be stored in the database, but the database doesn't contain that and it doesn't know how to run it. You know, that's my guess.
So from a user looking at the UI, they could have some V1 pipelines that are there, the existing ones, and they try to run them, they wouldn't run.
Well, it's more like it doesn't even show the run button. It doesn't even show the run button.
No run.
You would have to click on the pipelines, probably select upload new version, upload, and then you might be able to execute them again.
Okay, this sounds like in the short term, we need a known issue and a document, some type of documentation of it, and then fix it if we're not going to see a fix, but we should at least, I mean, I guess we can point people to this issue if that issue takes them through it, but.
I've also sent a second issue in the chat that is about the network policy. It's also just fixed upstream and master, but not yet in the 1.8 branch. I'm not sure whether it's necessary to backport, because it's only something from contract.
What's your take? Is this something that does need to be, is this
I would at least make the release team aware of it, and at least mention it here in our documents, what I've sent in the chat.
Yeah, like the distributions can include it if they want to.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah,
because this is a manifest, right?
If you're going to do a 1.8.1 release, then it might make sense to include the network policy fix as well. If you are not going to do a 1.8.1 release for this KFP stuff, then it's also fine to just leave the network policy stuff as it is.
Okay, we'll push this back to the release team. We'll try to get a comments back from them. Hopefully by next Monday or Tuesday, we'll have some kind of process on this. So appreciate all the feedback from the community. These seem like, you know, items that people have identified. The community's being responsive. You know, it's not the fact that we don't have issues that come up. It's how do we respond to them. So let me ask here, is there anybody that feels like this is not getting a proper attention, or are we moving at the right speed? Is somebody upset about this or needs immediate help?
Which part are you talking about?
Either one of these,
I think the
network
top one is going to
policy.
cause noise if we don't resolve it in some satisfactory way. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just wondering if somebody's really upset right now. Like they have to run something before a holiday or their hair is going to be on fire. Does not.
The net result in my perspective was people just won't upgrade, right? So we just need to put out a patch for the UI or whatever that can detect that this is the situation and fix it, and then distributions can include it as a hot patch.
Maybe we can run this back to the KFP working group team. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much my thought. Yeah.
All right. 1.9. Believe this
Josh,
team
can I
is.
just give talk about the proposal, and after that I have a hard stop in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Sorry, Johnny, I put you up here right at the top. So go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Do you want me to click into that?
Yeah, let me share. Yeah.
I can stop sharing. Why don't you go ahead and show what you want? Go ahead.
Sure. Yes, so we have a new proposal in training operator. So just to talk about the history, right? Earlier, it was all YAML based. Then we had Python SDK. In the last release, we had a new APA, which is create job, where you can just point to a training function, and user doesn't need to worry anything about creating images by themselves. So you can point to a Python function, and rest all should be taken care automatically, and you can run a distributed training job directly from the notebook. Now, coming to the LLM world, and this is something that we have seen with multiple users. They want a better way of doing a multi-node, multi-GPU training, given the simplicity of either deep speed or Hugging Face, the trainer APIs. So we have some model in the Hugging Face model repository, and they have some data set to either do a full pre-training or do some fine-tuning on top of that. So the idea is to again have a much higher API, which is called Train API, which would help in all their needs, right? So we try to bring as much generality here, not specific to a particular provider. So the new training API will take the number of nodes, number of process per node, which is number of GPUs per node, where the model is located. So in the Hugging Face, it will be Hugging Face repo model name, for example, Llama. Then you can provide a data set, which can be either a Hugging Face data set or something which is there in the external data provider like S3 or something like that, right? We have evaluation data set. And the other parameters are optional, where you can provide model arguments similar to the authentication tokens, either the Hugging Face token or access token or access secret of S3, etc. Right? And you can provide even training parameters. So think about this API. When it is run, it will start a distributed training job in multiple nodes, honoring the number of GPUs per node. Right? Everything will be automatically taken care from their fine-tuning perspective without understanding anything about the underlying the Hugging Face API or any other model provider like in the future. Right? So this is a high-level overview, and we plan to add this API plus all the examples, right? And there are details regarding how to implement it, like using init containers, trying to download something in line with the Kaiser way of handling the storage models. And we are trying to enhance the original create job, which lacks certain features which are required for this feature, right? And with that, we'll have much higher level API for users to start using training operator for their training job, right? Right now, I see that in the Kubernetes world, this is really missing. If you really want something to be run at this scale, so I think the training operator can easily fit in there and bridge the gap over there. Any questions there? So the PR is open. If you have any comments, feedback, feel free to add there. We'll keep it open for a week or so that any comments, we really want to get the feedback from the community, and then we'll add there.
So just quick question from like a technical perspective, is it just isolated to training operator? Like it's just a Python SDK for the training operator, or is it something else as well?
Yeah, so there are certain things which are not implemented. For example, the last time we didn't support multiple GPUs per node, right? So that was added last time, and there are some fixes required there as well. So we will provide all the features required for at the operator side, and after that it is all at the SDK level.
I think just to add, I think we'll also be working on storage initializer in container, similar to Kserve. Like if you take a look at the proposal, basically you need in container to download the model before starting training. So we're going to maintain this kind of like initializer inside training operator. And I guess like we're going to create separate images for them as well.
When you say images, I assume you don't mean building them in real time, right? You mean like you've got a
Like
base image.
build. Yeah, we need to have like this initializer for every like adopter that we're going to support, any provider for foundation models, whether it is Hugging Face initially or anything else like moving forward, right? Because we need to have some initialization to download the model, right, from the registry.
Yeah, that's honestly a big thing, right? Like Kserve at least supports, some modes of deployment which there's a common base image and then it downloads the model from somewhere. Is that what you're planning to do here as well, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to like inherit like the approach what Kserve folks are doing.
What about for cases where the model is like really, really big?
Yeah, so there are some discussions happening there as well to make that easier. So we have to really think about it, but in at least in the training operator, that is in phase 2. So in phase 1, we'll try to get the functionality, and the problem that you said is a real problem, right? Like we are talking about very large models, so that has to be tackled. So we should.
So like I guess you could do that in the training operator with like a daemon set or something. But
yeah, so we have to see that. Yeah, probably like we'll take that only in phase 2, not in the phase 1.
Because I guess like the problem that you often have is like you want the model to be on, you want to choose where you serve the model based off where the model already is. You know what I mean?
All right.
Yeah, but I guess like we still like it's kind of like more complicated problem in Kserve because we like in distributed training world, right? We have multiple workers. Basically, every worker should have this model be present in the volume, right? Which means like if you have five different workers and if you need to download the model, you need to download it 5 times, right? For every container, right? Until you're using the shareable volume, right?
But you don't really want to use shared volume for this. You want to use something that like NVMe storage on the server, and then every pod on the server can mount that same volume. But it's just you do have to have a process to distribute it to the volume on each daemon, on each node that you actually want to serve on, right? So like you'd have like a daemon set that its entire job is just to keep models that are needing to be in sync downloaded on a PVC on each node, or maybe not daemon set even. It could just be a normal.
Yeah, I think we can think about like implementation phase there as well, like whether it's shareable.
Yeah. The main thing to think about is just like 100 gigabyte models, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Yeah, but there are like multiple things of optimization, like pre-warming, right? Or using like OCI images, like pre-download model on your node groups to warm them up, right? So there are several techniques that we can like think about to optimize this process moving forward, right?
So right now, most of the users use kind of like a common PVC. That's what people try, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
And they train the model, and the model output is put into the same PVC for the further either for CATIB or for Kserve after that.
I have a question. High level.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
What's the operational benefit of this compared to without it? You have manual steps you have to run through. How is this? Any way that we can quantify how this will shorten or improve operational?
So yeah, so multiple things, right? One, they don't need to understand anything about the infra. I think are the common goal I think that is the biggest one. The second, to manage a multi-node, multi-GPU setup, it's not trivial, right? Particularly all the things that we discussed, very large models. The training loop itself is like a bit difficult. Like, what are the possible optimizations, etc. Right? So we could do everything in the underlying implementation, and then everything can be taken care. And most of the people right now, at least for now, people use models from the Hugging Face, for example, right? Like they take some of these base models and then fine tune, or like in the other side, like entire full pre-trained on these models that you're seeing now. So that would be a good start for most of the people, and that's what, like, I would say 90% of the current deployments do, right? Like do fine tuning on the model that is there in Hugging Face. So here, if you provide such a easy API, particularly in Kubernetes world, I don't see a easy way to do that, right? People are talking about like you have to set certain things in VMworld if you actually want to do all of this. So if you can take care of the entire setup automatically, users can straight away use like 5 or 6 lines of code, and with a Kubernetes cluster access, they should be able to do a full distributed training.
So they're
So
going to
there's
get
two.
local
Yeah.
distributed training with all the performance and cost benefits, as
So
well
it
as
should,
privacy.
what we have to aim is to provide a local kind of experience for the user, right? And that's exactly what we want to do. And we are trying to see what we can provide there.
So there's two questions I have. Is that like this? How does this relate to the cluster's structure, right? Like if you're not actually doing, like if your model, if your API doesn't specifically define things like how do I request a node? You know what I mean? Like how do I request a GPU? Like that could be very different on a different cluster. Like one cluster might require a toleration and a node selector, and another cluster it might just require a request.
So if you want, yeah, so good question. So if you want more customization there, then we have to really go with our earlier way of doing stuff, right? So here we are definitely going a little higher, and that actually means it is much more opinionated. So we are just providing very few options to the top, right? Like we are just saying, like, give us how many nodes you want, basically replicas, and how many GPUs with each replicas, right? That's the only thing that we are taking from a systems point of view. But if you
But
really
then how
want
does it know what kind of GPU or how to even request it?
that is transparent to the user, right? Because if you have, for example, in the NVIDIA case, if you have a GPU operator installed, everything should be taken care automatically. Because when you request for GPUs, and we would populate it automatically for the user, which would add as many number of GPUs for their required jobs.
But like, let's say you've got H100s and H200s in the same cluster.
Yeah, true. I'm saying again that's a special case, right? I'm saying if you want to do that, yes, this will be a bit tough, right? Maybe like we can add more information over there, but again, that's not something that we are looking for this, at least for this particular API.
Couldn't you just make it simpler by making it like a list or something? I don't even know. Like,
so I think to answer your question, Matthew, I think like we spoke with so many data scientists and they don't really understand the tolerations other parts of Kubernetes cluster and don't really know how to configure this. I think like if data scientists like come to us and say, hey, I want to like similar, we did it for KT previously. Like for example, like we have a folks who actually update the API to support, for example, environment variables. So data scientists can specify environment variables in this kind of high level abstraction API. So I think in the phase 2, once like data scientists play more with this API, we can like integrate more optional arguments. For example, to support different type of GPUs or support other Kubernetes arguments. But initially, this API should be as simple as possible and as friendly to the data scientists as possible, right?
I'm just kind of worried that it might be less useful as a result, like because someone will have someone has to actually deploy the cluster, right? So like a data scientist doesn't exist outside of in the context of Kubernetes. They're not the ones deploying the cluster usually. So someone will have done that. And so then you could just make a config somewhere, right? Which says, here's a YAML file which describes the cluster architecture.
I think managing clusters is a separate problem, like overall in Kubeflow world, right? Like managing clusters and like managing the like interfaces with these components, it's like, two separate problems eventually. like, yes, usually if you want to use Kubeflow in production, you need to have a team of DevOps engineers who can install this for you. But like the next step, how to interact with the Kubeflow APIs is the thing that we can work on, right? Using SDKs, using notebooks, using simple user interfaces, right? Does it make
Well,
sense?
just
Like,
one thing is like my only main concern is I mean I haven't looked at the rest of your proposal, but the main concern is just that like in the real world a GPU is not a number, right? It's both. There are kinds of GPUs, there are and there are certainly when you come down to actually trying to request a specific training job contains a GPU, could require other steps than just even if like other than just adding a request for the GPU on the
I agree.
I'm gonna ask that we look. I think this is great. We got exposure of this. I want people to watch it. We have a lot of other topics to cover.
let's go. Yeah.
So if you have,
Can we-
if you have
is
questions,
this going to be discussed? Go ahead.
no, just sorry. So if you have questions, feel free to ping or like post in the GitHub. I have to jump right now.
Yeah. And we'll have conversation at the working group level too on this, right?
Yes, completely. Yes.
All right. And when do you want final comments back? 2 weeks? What are you looking for?
Yes, I think 2 weeks should be a good target. Yeah, more than that would delay our entire development.
All right. If you can give us an update after your comments, that would be great. I think this is fantastic. Thank you, John. Thank you, Andre. Matthew, great comments.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep moving forward because we have a lot and I do want to get to some of the things at the end. Matthew, can we cover this website? Is this from Anna update from this for CNCF? What is this?
So it's in my perspective, it's ready. It's just the only people who can merge it probably aren't here, unless anyone is a root approver on the website. Is anyone here who is a root approver? Like we pretty much said last time, unless anyone has a specifically aggressive disagreement with it and no one responded. Because obviously, again, it's not like it's a final update. Like people can, my thought process is that each of the working groups can propose their own wording for their own component if they wish to. But I think most of them will be happy with it because it's just copied from their own docs. But with the exception of notebooks, which again, I'm the lead of notebooks, so one of the leads.
Okay. I think we have this one. I may comment on this. Does anybody else have any comments on this?
Yeah, sorry, I think I can speak from training and optimal side. Sorry, like I didn't provide the comments last week. I was quite busy. Like I will try to do it like this week as well, Matthew. But I hope like pipelines team and also KServe folks can like provide their comments, right? Because I think
so the main question is just like, is it acceptable enough for you? And then you can, if you've got something really wrong, we can make a quick change. But the goal is not to try and get the perfect wording, right? If you have, because then you could just raise your own PR separately to your own team. As long as it's unless there's something very small, like I've said something wrong,
Yeah, I understand.
Because like you're not even listed on the list right now. You know what I mean? Like that's why I want to get you guys on the list.
Understand. Can you ping like all the working groups again on this PR? I saw your comment, but maybe you can ping pipeline serving folks and other people as well.
I'll probably do it after the holiday just so that we can get a better chance at people responding. But
yes, because maybe it's a holiday also this week, right, for the US. So I would suggest that maybe wait.
Yeah, I'm not going to merge it now, and I can't merge it. So like it's only really the Google people. And even if it gets merged, I don't think it's a big deal. It's just like the thing it does is it enables the working groups to make their own PR because previously they weren't even on the list, a lot of the working groups.
Okay. I'm going to say, let's try to move that one forward. Let's move on to the next item. These next couple items, Matthew, this policy on installing Kubeflow, can we keep this to a few minutes so we can get to the ones at the end of I want to get to the model registry and the adding new.
I mean, yeah, there's no real discussion here that can happen much until the steering committee is formed, I think. But what if anyone has any suggestions as to what they want policy to be, I mean, raise them now so we can add them to the list. But the general idea is just like, my general idea is not anything specific. It's just that I want the end user experience when someone is new to Kubeflow to be better. That's my goal, right? It's like that I want, when someone decided that they want to try Kubeflow, we've improved it a lot. Like there's now only one page that they need to go to, but like the problem is still that it's a bit overwhelming. There's no clear way to evaluate the, like for users to evaluate which distribution I should even try, you know, because there's like 20 of them, right? So it's like, so my thought process is just like, the most important thing is just to keep it up to date, right? Which is this legacy thing, right? So there's a couple of and so it's not relevant yet. We'll give it a wee while, but like there's a couple of distributions that we need to move to legacy because they're not planning to update. And that's really the main thing.
Okay. What about this adding new components?
I don't know what this is. No idea.
It's a continuation from the last community call. We were wondering what the procedure is to introduce any new component, or starting with the registry proposal. I think Ramesh is on here today.
Yes.
Okay. So the question is, can we move with that PR as is? The last I remember, Josh, you were going to take this to the steering committee to see what they thought. And haven't heard back.
Yeah, we did not have the steering committee meeting last week. I did comment on the model registry PR. And I asked several people to potentially provide their comment. I'm supportive and positive. I believe that of the model registry. Do you want to talk about both talking about the model registry and adding new components, or you just want to talk about moving the model registry forward?
So two things. One, well, first of all, like it's just a matter of whether we need to go through getting a document for adding a procedure for getting new components in before we can do the registry, or if we can do those things in parallel or not. I also suggested we had one of these for Red Hat's Open Data Hub project, and it's really simple. I don't know if it's as thorough as you may want, but we want to know what order these things need to be tackled. If we need to get to a document within the community first, then let's do that right away. Or if the model registry can move now, then let's try and do that.
So sorry, can I make a point?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's great. Thank you, Jeremy. So I think similar to Spark, maybe it's worth to have a doc around like benefits to Kubeflow, what is model registry, your architecture, so all the working groups can provide their feedback. And then we can think about integration with, existing Kubeflow components, how it will benefit users, and so on, right? Unfortunately, we don't have like the formal process for all of you to create the new components, but I think like we can start with something, right?
So there's an initial proposal in Ramesh's PR, I think.
Do you have that PR linked, or is it in the chat, or?
Maybe from last week. I'll put it in the chat now.
Yeah, it was on the last week. I think it's a good starting place, but there were, it's probably not extensive enough. And if you look at the Spark one, it probably goes a little bit further. Here's kind of my take, right? Both the Spark and the model registry are things that have been asked for a long time. They're major work efforts. They probably don't fit into an existing working group. They're almost like they're a new working group or a new, whatever we want to call it, a new team, just like the security team. And we have several of the people that I'd like to hear from, whether it's Andre or Anna or Matthew, both on the model registry and on the Spark. but let's talk about the model registry. I mean, my take on this is that, you know, the Red Hat folks are saying they want to move forward. They have the muscle to kind of move this forward and experience. I think we've needed it for a long time, so I'm supportive of this. There are concerns that I have, but in the general, I think that we should try to move this forward. And to do that, I think we need to put together a regular meeting with some schedule and some proposals about a phase one.
Yeah,
I'll
also,
open it up and ask
yeah.
if other people have opinions.
I think since like model registry and Spark kind of like, you know, can be part of working group data, and if we can discuss it a little bit moving forward, but I believe like we can establish a new working group for this as well, because like the working group data can cover such scope in terms of the registry also. But
It doesn't. There's no reason to prescribe what the structure would have to be. It's more like who's willing to maintain each of them, right? So there could be separate maintainers. There's no particular reason to lump them together unless they want to be.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. But I think like, so from my side, I just want to say more integration with existing Kubeflow components will be really, you know, great, Jeremy and Ramesh. I just saw your architecture in the model registry in the Open Data Hub GitHub repo. So I think if we can like formalize this to the maybe Google Doc or PR, that would be nice, so we can provide our comments and the feedback. Just
Like, yeah, the main thing is similar to the Spark one. We should have a clear, you know, what is actually being proposed, who's going to maintain it,
Yeah.
and also I would like to see alternatives as well. Like what we do have that in the Spark one, right? You know, for the Spark one, it's like we've got proposals from different operators all the way to not doing anything and just documenting how to use Spark's inbuilt Kubernetes support, right? So like I feel like there must be a similar alternative list as well. Like, you know, we could integrate with MLflow model registry. I don't know if it's actually suitable, or we could extend the existing ML metadata registry, you know, that it's kind of a registry that's in Kubeflow already, like that kind of thing.
So our thinking was, you know, when we get through the, you know, we have a proposal. The proposal currently, what we have in place is what we put together for what our needs are currently from the Red Hat perspective, right? The kind of a, you know, goal and thinking we have is we could come up with the, you know, we can extend our current proposal to fit, you know, the Kubeflow, but, you know, we also at the same time we want to create this working group, right, and start looking at a little bit more from not just from the in the Red Hat perspective, but, you know, also from the community perspective, to see a little bit, dig a little bit deeper dive into it, you know, and expand the proposal for that, right? That's one of the reasons we have not put together anything more work than what we have currently today, because we want to make sure that, you know, if we are putting that, you know, then we have a approval to, you know, for the creation of a working group and, you know, community support from the Kubeflow perspective, right? Then we wanted to, that's the direction we wanted to follow. You know, I'm open to hear suggestions from you guys.
Yeah. So, you know, I'll just add a little more color about the design and implementation goals from Red Hat, right? When we started on this, you know, endeavor, we had the option of, you know, we actually, you know, looked at other model registry solutions from other platforms, and what we found was that, you know, most of the model registry implementations are kind of, you know, tightly coupled to their implementations, right? Model registries don't just, you know, store model data; they're also doing orchestration and things like that, right? So there isn't like a, you know, a boundary or a fence around just the registry function. So that was our primary motivation in, you know, using ML metadata as one of the core components, to try and create a model registry that can be, you know, decoupled from the platform itself, to try and, you know, define and design something that can be pluggable, is not tightly coupled, but can still be reused in multiple, you know, ML platforms, and you could have like different user interfaces that interact, you know, with this sort of generic or universal model registry. So that's the way we have tried to design and implement it, and we started on the implementation a little bit, but that's where we would really like to start a dialogue with the community to talk about these ideas and um, basically create something concrete, right, that we can all work on and share together to create this sort of shared model registry that is not tied to a particular platform implementation.
So this is great. I love it. Just in the interest of time, I'm wondering if Matthew, Andre, Anna, any of you would oppose having this move forward with the idea of, if there's some milestone that we can identify that this team can achieve, that they would have a defined path to become a working group. Is anybody opposed to giving some type of milestone that could be done in some certain period of time? That
I'm
this
not.
could
I'm not.
move forward?
Yeah, I'm not against it, but I think we should, like, the process to adopt a new component is an interesting one. Like, we could have like a sandbox project system like the CNCF does, even, like something like that. Because like part of the problem is always, we don't know what's going to be good or successful, right, within the Kubeflow ecosystem. So letting people just try building it and see what happens also is a good idea. But they're asking for more than that in this case. I think they're asking for, because they can obviously start building their own product, right? But they're asking for interaction, I guess, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think we want, whether there's a graduated criteria or not, we want to achieve the, kind of GA level support and blessing and all the integration stuff that was just talked about. I think if we created a Google document, Ramesh was suggesting, right, and just added it to the PR and began, maybe send it to the Kubeflow discuss list to generate some more eyeballs and feedback. And then maybe we did a couple of bespoke meetings about the registry in advance of establishing an actual working group. Would that be a good use of the next week or two?
Yeah, I want to get to a place where we can have a go, no go based upon some decision about, hey, you guys can feel comfortable about continuing to invest. But I want to have some defined date where we get that buy-in. I'd like to hear from Anna, probably Andre, maybe even Jono. I think Jono left. If they have any concerns, and especially the pipelines working group.
Yeah, I think this is important because from my understanding, it's you kind of like try to adopt MLMD, Google MLMD, and just add additional components on top of this. So I would love to hear the feedback from pipelines team, because they're heavily using MLMD today. And I still believe we need, whether this PR or Google Doc, to provide comments from our side on your architecture and on your proposal. So my suggestion, create a Google Doc, but I'm open to other suggestions.
So also, it's kind of like the two main pieces that it would be interacting with would be, well, three if you want to call Kubeflow overall, which the main one would be Queso, which isn't even kind of part of Kubeflow, which is kind of confusing, right? So, but the other ones would be not pipelines for training and notebooks for evaluating, I guess. But like, because the main thing I'm trying to understand is, even absence of Kubeflow, right? Kubeflow probably wants an ML model registry or some story around this, yes. That's more native than what we currently have. But the question I've got is, if we just step back from Kubeflow, try and understand, like, there are a couple of model registries, they're not the best, that exist in the open source world already. Just trying to understand what we're doing differently, just even that pitch, you know what I mean? Like, what, like in a succinct kind of, like, why is there a need for a new thing? I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying, like, what like, obviously that's going to be part of the proposal, but that comes down to the alternative.
The alternative section, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's not saying that there are alternatives. It's just like, what were the things that are, because it helps you understand the motivation.
Not to be too tactical, but I'm going to be a little bit. It would be helpful, if we want to move this forward and get commitments from the different groups, we need PRs that are associated with what's the integration with Kserve, with notebooks, with the dashboard, with the installation, with KFP, that would at least identify what happens in phase one, right? And that seems like we're too far away from that. But we need, if there's some intermediate step that we can get to before Christmas or in December, I would like to put a date on when we can get a decision on this, so you guys aren't in limbo. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like in 2 weeks, I'd like to be able to get to some place where where the working groups have looked at this and said, it's okay to move forward, but I need to know this before I can give you my definite thumbs up.
So what let me see, I can reiterate what you're asking, Josh. We can certainly extend the proposal to put our thinking behind how these will integrate with the notebooks and the DSP side and the K-serve side. We can extend our proposal to have those options in there, and we'll see whether we can include some of the Matthew's alternative suggestions. How why we choose the way we are going this route, or what advantages we will have we are designing in a little different way than the other teams did. So we'll I think Dheeraj was trying to explain that a little bit earlier, but we'll accentuate in the proposal, and hopefully we can have a dialogue on that.
Would it be possible for you guys to set up a meeting or a series of meetings to review this, that we could get the community together outside? It's too big for this particular community meeting. I don't mind having a status call and updates, but the details that need to have its own separate meeting coming up.
Well, like that sounds like a SIG, right? I know we're using strange words because technically we've reversed the name SIG versus working group to Kubernetes. So we're actually the reverse way around. So a working group is like a really formal governing body in Kubeflow, whereas a SIG is like a, ironically, is the informal kind of discussion group, which actually probably makes more sense from a naming perspective. But anyway, so what we could do is form a SIG for metadata or something, but that also would be up to that there's a small chance that no one's interested outside of Red Hat in discussing that with you unless you really market it, right? So like, especially, and so like, if we do that, then it would be on you to try and convince people that what you're saying is worth interacting with, and then if you think you can do that, then Josh, I would be okay with them creating a SIG and even putting it on the calendar,
Yeah, I think, if that's the only option we have, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to make it too formal to start off with. I'm just trying to get the top folks in the community to say, hey, gut feel, are you going to support this or are you going to block it? And are you going to be able to, because I'm sure that each of the working groups are going to have to do some type of modification, whether it's schema or whatever, to accommodate the registry in some way.
And also just think about it from an end user perspective. Like a common problem that I work with customers on all the time is connecting your ML platform into an actual flow, right? It's like I want to have a pipeline which trains new models, registers them in the registry, a separate pipeline to create evaluation metrics and load those metrics into the registry, and then a separate process to decide which models are going to be deployed, right? And right now everyone builds that themselves. Usually they just wrap a database with an API, and then all their different components connect that. If we can provide some first party way of doing that, even if not everyone does it, it still would be very valuable, right? And that's what I'm trying to,
all right.
I want that, yeah.
We kind of moved around this. Look, if you guys can think about the comments, see what you can do. I'm supportive. I will help you get people to, and if there's enough energy there, you'll see it happen, right? But I'm not hearing anybody blocking it. And it sounds like most people are fairly supportive of it, but the devil's going to be in the details.
Yep.
I want to, because Andre has been working on the Spark operator, and it's kind of an example of another project that's maturing in this space. Andre, do you want to give an update at all on this so you can we can use this as an example a little bit of...
Yeah, sure, we can do it quickly. Yeah, so we've been discussing with a few folks from different organizations, such as at AWS, Apple, and Google, So this Spark operator, so basically initially, just a bit of context, like Google is willing to donate it to Kubeflow. So this operator lives right now under Google Cloud Platform GitHub org. Because of the lack of maintenance, they tried to find a new home for this operator. And initially, Marcin was proposing to donate this to the Kubeflow org. And because Spark is one of the most kind of like, well-used tool in terms of AML workloads, we believe that it actually benefits Kubeflow eventually. We kind of like propose two integration. So the first one is, you can see here, integration between Spark operator and Kubeflow training operator. So we want to like, and we will probably from our side, from my team, we will provide some proposals soon. So basically what we want to do, we want to provide some sort of the cache structure, how we can basically feed your data from Spark to training using Apache Arrow, the data format to basically store your memory to store your data in memory. So there are one of the integrations we can do. Also, I think Kamaros was mentioning about integration with Kubeflow profiles, right? And ability to deploy Spark in multi-tenant clusters. So I think this is like the second one, which we can think about, how we can run Spark in the multi-tenant AML environment on Kubernetes. And eventually, similar to model registry, as I said, I think we need to probably discuss about establishing a new working group, specifically maybe working group data, which can cover, model registry and Spark initially. I think it's a good way, but eventually, like, this working group also can cover in multiple ways, so provided by the guidelines how people can use these tools, such as like Ray, Dask, or Spark, to run AML workloads on Kubernetes. So this scope of the working group we can think about, but Spark would be, the good first candidate to start this out. In terms of maintainers, like as I said, like we found like few folks from Apple, from AWS, and from Google actually are willing to maintain it under Kubeflow org if we find like the agreement. And also, like, I added a few steps into the migration. So we need to think about like how we're going to move this repository. Like if we find an agreement and if all the folks agree, we probably don't want to fork it. We just want to like, like not clone it, but basically migrate the registry to save the history and the issues. And also we need to think about API changes if it is required, because if the answer is yes, we need to think about user migration, because there are a lot of users using the Spark operator in production today. So the question is how API will look like for them. Do we need to migrate them to the Kubeflow one, or are we going to keep it the existing one with the easier of migration? And I added a step about documentation, because documentation right now lives in the Spark GitHub GitHub repo. And like as we said, I also like notice some existing solutions. So there are a few proposals. So right now, if you like aware, like in Apache community, there is another proposal, also comes from Apple. Like they want to donate another Java-based operator to Apache Foundation. So if you're wondering, you can take a look at this. But eventually, I think the problem is here. Yeah, there will be probably multiple operators which exist under for Spark and to run this in Kubernetes. But because the user base for this one is large, we shouldn't, force people to migrate, because it's not an easy task to migrate so many customers to the new Spark operator in the short term. So from our side, and I think AWS and other folks agree that probably we should support the customers who run the Spark operator today using the Google one. And eventually, if Apache and the Spark community decided to have one stop for running Spark and Kubernetes, we might need to migrate the customers to the new one. But this is like a multi-year effort, which can take up to 3 to 4 years to finish. So I think the short-term goal, and if everyone agree, just take this operator, donate it to Kubeflow, tell people you can run Spark within Kubernetes in the easy way, and then just think about how we can improve it eventually. Yeah, so would be nice if you can provide your comments. And I think we can find agreement in several weeks to move forward this.
So wait, is the Kubernetes, so the Apache Foundation, is this actually like a formal effort, or is just someone proposing it to them?
So it is one team from Apple who proposing to donate their operator to Apache Foundation, who not using this Spark, the Google One Spark operator, but another operator. So it's basically like Java-based Kubernetes operator, which do similar things, such as this one. architecture the same, but they have a different implementation basically and different APIs. Does that make sense, Martin?
Yeah, no, it's just like it's a bit weird in this case, but it's a bit strange because it's Apple doing. But so like if there are three, I mean, I'm fine with there being multiple competitors in a space, and that's fine. Although Kubeflow implicitly adopting one is an endorsement, right? That's fine. But the thing that I'm happy with, if I can see it, like to those people who you saw that were going to maintain it, do they represent their companies or are they just individually?
So yeah, so like they basically, what do you mean like individual or representing the company?
What I mean is like, if let's say they left their job at that company, would they continue maintaining it, or would the company replace them with someone else? You know?
Yeah, so we can ask them, but I guess like what Edible is told, they have several customers using this Spark operator in production, so they need to find a place for to to interact with the customer. So it's not like the individual, so basically a team who are actually willing to maintain it, right? And because their customers are using this Spark in production, which means like they cannot like they need to find a place for people to contribute, right? Even from the customer perspective, because their customers also ask about the features, but because of the lack of the maintenance in the existing Spark GitHub org, they cannot just do this, right? From the Apple side, similar things, like we have people here at Apple who are actually using the Spark operator in production, and they're willing to contribute some features, but they need to find like they just want to have a repo which will have like active commitment to the repo, if that makes sense. So
is there any possibility that, I mean, it depends on, I mean, if we do it properly, like it may be the best home for, I'm not saying that it's not shouldn't go into the Apache Foundation, but maybe the best home, like where is the best home for this, right? Like if it's under us, then that's fine. And then maybe the Apple proposal should be to merge with our one. I don't know, like if we end up adopting this one. But I guess it's a different language. That seems impossible. So
yeah, I think the bigger problem here is how to support existing customers, right? Because as I said, like it could take up to 3 to 4 years to migrate customers, right? It's not a trivial task to ask so many people who are using the existing Spark operator to just migrate to a new one, right? I just think like like to get like the short-term value, we should just find the good place for this operator to live, right? The Google one. Does make sense. So the customers can still benefit from this, right? And they basically can still run their Spark workloads. And eventually, like if Apache, like if Spark community decided, hey, like you find an optimal way to run Spark, which is this new one, yes, probably like we need to, this new working group data should be responsible to provide the guidelines on how to use Spark and Kubernetes within the existing AML workloads. Because all the integration should still live within Kubeflow, right? The integration with the training operator, with integration with, like the intermediate cache layer for the data, or similar to like profiles, controllers, and other things, right?
the main things that all I've got is just like, if there's people willing to maintain a project and the project has users, there's no negative to Kubeflow adopting it, assuming that it's not implicit, like assuming that we have assuming that we decide what it means, right? It's like, what does adopting mean? Does it mean that you're just developing it in our org and under the governance, or what does it mean, right? Like, or is it like an implicit full GA app? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean.
Well, I think to me, it goes to how's it's tested, how's it's documented. And, one question it's not on here is how's the distributions feel about this, right?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this before. So I guess like if we're going to install this as part of our manifest, it would be nice. Like in distributions can also take this out. But I think we shouldn't stop people who actually can use several pieces of Kubeflow to create a distribution, right? And I think I mentioned this before. Some people using Kubeflow, not all of the components basically, but several of them, maybe like kserve plus training operator, maybe like, pipelines and notebooks, right? So which means like, I think we should have a precedent when people create a distribution from Kubeflow, but not using the all components from Kubeflow, right?
Of course. I mean, that's what deploy KF does as well. It just happens to support all the components and you just choose the ones you want.
All right.
But like what you're saying is probably more from the conformance perspective. And that's why I was always saying the conformance, there should be like different layers of conformance, right? There should be conformance for each of the individual components, like Kubeflow pipelines conformant, Kubeflow notebooks conformant, you know, and then there should be an overall kind of, you support everything in Kubeflow that's official, you know, and that's kind of, I think we did land on that as the thing. So there's no disagreement there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just what is our delivery in 1.9 on this is what I'm trying to get to, Andre.
So I think like, if steering committee agrees that we can just commit this, I mean, just, agree that probably like this proposal can move forward. And then we can speak with Marcin, and Marcin can discuss with Google legal team to how to donate this repo and just clone it. Not clone it, sorry, just
Migrate.
Migrate. And then I guess like I really want to hear about if we find to establish new working groups, because I think model registry and this can play a good initial role for working group data.
I think honestly, I feel like those are separate working groups still. Like I think because like I think metadata is more like what the model registry is, and this is more like distributed processing almost. You know what I mean? Because like also I'd love to get a few other components into Kubeflow, not necessarily into Kubeflow, but like natively integrated with. Like there's a few cool projects that I've seen lately. And obviously just like other things like stream processing as well, right? Like just any kind of data processing.
Yeah, but I mean, like we can like extend the scope of working group data, right? We can think about stream processing there. We can add like data components for metadata as well. Because it is a subset, right, of in general what word data, right?
Kind of, right. If we, I treat more the model registry as more like ML glue. I don't know, like it's like a connector between everything rather than it's its own. Like it's such a big scope. I think that one almost deserves its own working group. That's all I'm saying. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is the correct separate proposal, like, which working group this will be. But I just believe working group data can cover multiple, use cases. And initially we can start with small, right? And then if if model registry requires a separate working group, we can like, just create a new one. So
it just feels like they just don't have anything in common if you put those two together. That's all I'm saying. Like, because you've got Spark, which is its own huge world, which is great. And if we want to first party support that, all the users of that are only going to be interested in that, right? Whereas the model registry will have a whole separate user base. Sometimes they'll overlap, but not often. And yeah, that's all I'm saying. Like, yeah.
But I mean, usually
also, like it's about maintainers, right? If there's someone willing to maintain like also we don't want to like force people to work together who don't need to, right? That's what I'm saying. Like if we have maintainers on both sides, and that comes back to the Red Hat guys. Like right now, is it just you guys, or like you can see there's 3 different companies represented in the Spark proposal? Is there more than one company represented in yours?
Right now, no. We are doing it ourselves, but that's another reason. That's one more thing we wanted to ask the community to have any interest in participation. So,
right. Yeah, on the Kubeflow issue that we created, for obvious reasons, the ML metadata team seems to be interested in as well. So Google might want to work with us as well.
So
yeah.
At least our roadmap, the way we are looking at Matthew is, we probably start with the model registry side in the beginning, but we want to include the DSP data science, the Kubeflow pipelines team, integrate into one big solution. At least that's what we are looking at on the roadmap. So there will be other teams from the Kubeflow community, but that we want to integrate with. But different as far as the supportability wise, if others, we would want to engage others and see what's the interest there. But right now it's the Red Hat. Because we do have a requirement in our product stack to deliver this, and we are committed in doing this. So
okay.
Yes.
So we're over time. I want to be sensitive of giving both these teams visibility of how they're going to be able to get a decision. Right. I think that the steering committee needs to weigh in here and say yes or no, or maybe. I think that this also kind of plays into the new steering committee that's coming, as well as the IP transfer and any restrictions or limitations that may come in as we transfer from a Google-owned to a CNCF-owned project. Those things need to be figured out. I think all of this is probably going to come to a head about the middle of January. But in the meantime, I don't want to stop these projects from moving forward. My view is we need to get to a place where these proposals have been reviewed by the major stakeholders and they're saying yes. And I'm going to assume that if the major stakeholders are saying yes, we're going to be able to make these things work. The thing that concerns me about the model registry is it needs to have multiple people involved. And I think Red Hat has multiple people, but I think having multiple companies would make it even stronger. The thing that concerns me about the Spark is it's a really big, and there's a lot of different solutions. And to Matthew's kind of points, there's a lot of different options here. Are we picking the right horse to run with? But I'm willing to take that chance, in my opinion, right now, that it's one of many potentially. So how do we move? How do we make you guys feel comfortable knowing that we probably aren't going to get a final on this until the middle of January is probably my guess? How do we get an intern step that makes you guys feel comfortable you can continue to invest? And where is what does this mean to Kubeflow 1.9 or some type? We need something to point to, right? Which KubeCon is March, I think, in EMEA. That sounds too fast for any of this.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, the Spark operator could honestly happen very quickly. I think the Spark operator one, if we choose to accept it, could just be moved to the org as soon as Google's able to do that.
There's no integration there, though, right? Is there an integration?
Yeah, integration, I think, Josh, might take more than like several quarters to implement, right? So I think the first time just to migrate it, and then we can think about integration. Not think, but
yeah, we need to just define what the process to become a component is. Like, not define in any formal sense. It's more like we could just say this is a sandbox project. You know what I mean? And then it's like at least a little bit clear to users and distributions that they don't have to include that. You know what I mean? Like,
if Kubeflow 1.9 is June of next year, making this up.
Mhm.
Is there anything in the model registry available by June of next year?
We can certainly target towards the June is much more achievable target in our opinion. Than March, for sure.
Would there be anything from the Spark operator integration time available in June of next year?
I was speaking about June or March, Josh. Like I
June,
guess like
let's say June. Let's say 1.9. Let's say 1.9 6 months from now. That's more than 6 months, but in Kubeflow world, it's 6 months. I'm smiling.
Yeah, I think we can think about, like, we have like few people. So Ross, do you want to say something in terms of the integration that you can think about before June? Oh, yeah, me.
Sorry, yeah, I was just trying to get unmuted there. Integration before June. Not a ton off the top of my head right now, Andre. I think kind of the short-term goal would be just to get a home for the Spark operator because it's used by so many people, not only at Apple but outside of Apple. And then from there, thinking about, generally we use a lot of Spark to process data before then we use it for other things. So if I think the discussion on the data working group probably helps us make the decision about what to do moving forward, because the way I envision this is people are using Spark to load data, prepare data, and then load data into some caching layer, and then using that caching layer to optimize their training workloads. So I think we just need more time to think about that and figure out how to stitch that story together and come up with a proposal for what that might look like and how those pieces fit together. I know the pieces definitely fit together. I think we just need a little more time to kind of think through the story we want to tell there, if that makes sense.
like, I'm really for the Spark operator living under the Kubeflow org. I think it's just about messaging. right? Like, because like, let's say even in some crazy world, we end up with 2 Spark operators. That's fine, right? Like, there's no real negative there. The CNCF has many projects internally that compete with each other. It's just making sure that, you know, we give you guys what you need to be successful for your users, and also benefit all of our users by giving them a new option for Spark. You know what I mean? Like, that's, and maybe they don't always, so like maybe part of the messaging is like defining, yes, this is now part of Kubeflow, but this is not the only way to run Spark on Kubernetes. Here are some other options, you know what I mean? And being very clear about that to the users, and then why you would pick one over the other, you know? And then just, you're still in the Kubeflow org, and eventually you'll progress faster than other options, presumably. So
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, we can't give you a definitive answer until the steering committee can vote on it, obviously, because the steering committee doesn't exist until December. But so that's a bit different though, because there's an existing repo that could be migrated. Whereas on the Red Hat side, I think obviously what you seem to need is feedback on your design, and a partner, and at least one other interested group, you know what I mean, to be able to, so like, and that second part can come later, but like obviously it sounds like what you're wanting immediately is just feedback on your design, right? And obviously
Yes.
if you're using the model registry from Google, it makes total sense to get their feedback. But then obviously to get interested parties to collaborate, you could just start by making it on your own org, which is obviously what you're going to do, right? Presumably you're going to start with your own org.
Yep.
And then just design it so that it's Apache 2 licensed, and we can like, and you can use, you know, the Kubeflow stuff to try and find partners who are interested in collaborating, you know, like the discussion, you feel free to do that already, you know, like, but it's usually these projects take, like, new open source projects take a while to kind of gain momentum, and then they suddenly blow up if they end up being useful. But
All right, hey,
like yeah,
I have to apologize. We're way over time. I think this has been helpful. Hopefully the guys from Red Hat, this is helping you. I don't know, right? But
Absolutely.
I'd like to push it forward for you and get a go, no go. I'm not hearing anyone saying no at this point, right? But maybe they're shy and they'll come out later. But let's try to get to a place where if somebody's got deep concerns, they come out in the next week or so, 2 weeks max. Spark operator, same thing. Little concerned about, we don't have an integration path. I'm not sure, you know, I'd like to see a schedule for an integration from the Spark operator, at least proposed at some point. But I'm supportive of both of these. I think they've been asked for a long time. Surprised is Anna still not here.
Yeah, just
Analyst.
one last small point. I think for the integration side from Spark, I think like even if we install this as part of Kubeflow distribution initially by June, that will be sufficient for users to try this out. Just just a small point, you know, integration with the profiles and with Istio gateway, right? Not with Istio gateway, basically just installing as part of Kubeflow distributions, and update the profiles to create the appropriate roles to create the Spark jobs. That would be nice. And this is extremely simple to do, right? So we can definitely do this initially. So
Propose a phase 1. Let's work
Yeah.
for phase 1 and
Yeah.
execute it and go, and then we can worry about phase 2 after we've gone through phase 1. But let's get a phase 1.
Yeah.
So also, how many people are using it? Like, I don't know if you've got it on the list. Like, you know, we talk about
So
lots of people
this
using
is-
it, but how many people are using
This
it?
is the most popular Spark operator in the world today.
Okay, but like, how popular is a Spark operator? You know what I mean?
So I mean, like, AWS told us they kind of like 45 organizations, right, in the whole who is using document, but it's much more. Like recently we get like, you know, the comment from Salesforce folks who are using this in production as well. So in terms of
that's what I see as a benefit, right? Like, it seems like the people using it are going to be huge companies, which is actually good for Kubeflow because they might come and contribute to other places as well. You know,
yeah, that's
because
true.
like the really smaller companies are probably using managed services in my experience, or even up to very large companies are using managed services for Spark. But
How do we push this forward in either next week or in 2 weeks? What is this? What's the question that has to be asked or answered next week or in 2 weeks?
I think let's wait 2 weeks for your comments. I already pinged all the working groups, and if you can ping more folks and maybe just promote it somewhere, Josh, that would be helpful. But I think in 2 weeks we can get like an answer to Marcin, what we can do moving forward, right? So then,
Well, we need
Marcin,
to accept, well, the steering committee needs to vote to accept them or not, right? That's the main thing. As a, let's say, as a, you know, as a incubating project or something. I don't even know how to describe it. They're obviously been around forever, but like incubating in our governance terms.
At least we, from our side, at least we can make sure that we will update our proposal in a Google Doc with what you guys are asking, Matthew and Josh, but have it available by next week. You know, at least to answer the integration points and some of the motivations behind it. As you suggested, you know, from there, you know, if you want to take it to the steering committee, and later we can work towards the any supporting partners that can help us, you know, go along the journey.
Because it could be like for the Spark operator, I can see them coming immediately a working group. For your one, it doesn't exist yet, so they can't really be a working group. So like what they could be though is a SIG, and then you're still developing it in your org, but that SIG is responsible to make the integration between Kubeflow and your product better. You see what I mean? Like, and then eventually once it becomes clear that that's, you know, that the integration is there and the product exists, obviously, then it can be like, okay, that could be donated into the Kubeflow org and then the Linux Foundation indirectly, you know. So like, but for the Spark operator, it's pretty clear that it's already a product. So
on the issue for the model registry, the Google folks who deal with the ML metadata have commented on their people that take care of that. I think a next step would be those folks from Google providing some comment on that issue that you guys have raised, right? Or the proposal. I think their input is critical for both the steering committee and for the KFP team to say that they're going to support this, right? And I think they're probably a critical component here of success.
Right. So, I mean, I don't think we have enough time here, but you know, what we heard is, you know, they're pushing the Google ML metadata project into a maintenance phase. So that's what another bigger issue. You know, we wanted to bring it to the focus of this group, and we wanted to see if we take this. If there is interest, you know, we wanted to take ownership of that, and you know, even if we have to create a fork of it, and you know, take it under the umbrella of model registry and develop that one further. Because you know, I don't think there is a bigger commitment from Google in terms of a long-term support on that.
Okay.
But so in order to support the, you know, we already made, you know, from Kubeflow perspective, we already made investment with the Kubeflow pipelines team, right, into the ML metadata. So in order to protect that, and I mean, with the model registry solution, what we want to propose is we want to propose a single solution that will protect the current interests that are already invested in. Also, you know, develop the solution further towards the model registry, right? It's a two-pronged approach. So we are also seeing, you know, lots of restrictions the way the Google metadata was designed. The interface is really good, but the implementation, I think we already thought through a lot of it, how we could further improve in terms of multi-tenancies and RBACs and all those stuff. So we can put those in the proposal. You know, that would be our, you know, end proposal. You know, maybe we'll not get there in the first step, you know, but you know, there is multiple steps where we want to take a phased approach and take the whole community along that.
Because like Kubeflow, my thought process is Kubeflow is not an incubator, right? Like, so you can develop the project outside with like effectively, I think the Spark operator is asking to be donated to the Kubeflow project. That's totally separate and makes sense because they get a working group immediately because they'd be part of the project. You, I think, are actually asking for a SIG, right? Which is like an interaction with the community that like the model registry SIG. You know what I mean? Like the and then that's going to get people interested. People saying a Kubeflow model registry SIG, and you can market it as that. And then their goal is not to build that tool, but to build integrations with other tools, right? And then but you can lead that working group and shepherd it towards solving that problem, you know, of integrating with your one. because that's all that really matters, right? Who's actually willing to do the work. But I agree that the model registry needs to be forked or maintained somewhere else because it's not maintained right now. But it's a big problem because it causes problems with MySQL even in Kubeflow pipelines because it doesn't support the latest auth method.
Yep. Those are all the issues, we already identified, and we spent weeks on it in trying to solve those. So we have a very good proposal on how to fix all
So like it sounds like because you're proposing the thing you're proposing, there's two separate pieces, like the actual app, which is your own prerogative, right? And then there's which you want input on. Yes, it's a good idea, but that's a separate. And then there's the proposal of what the community needs to do immediately, because it's unlikely that we would accept a brand new project within the community. It's possible, but unless there was 2 or 3 companies involved, it just seems unlikely. You know what I mean? But we would totally accept a company who's got a good open source project that wants integration with Kubeflow, you know what I mean? And then with the inevitable end state being you make it a neutrally governed project that becomes part of Kubeflow as well, like that makes total sense. But because it seems like you're already set up to develop it on your own org.
right.
Yeah.
I gotta go, guys. I'm sorry. We're way over. Hopefully this helped. Let's try to put it even closer to some go, no go point for both of these. Otherwise, we'll just talk about it, right? And there's so much detail that it needs to spin out into separate meetings, but we need to get to some question that has to be answered, right? Some set of questions that have to be answered that will force you guys to feel comfortable to move forward, right?
Maybe
Hopefully you're feeling comfortable, you can move forward now, but I want to give
you... Feel free to build it. Like, that's like, we're not stopping. Like, in fact, I would encourage you to, once you've got your feedback that you're confident that what you've got is useful, just start building and propose and make a very basic proposal to make a SIG for model registries, and then you'll lead it. And then I would support that. I'm sure Josh would support a model registry SIG anyway. And as long as you charitably run it as, if people come and say they want to run MLflow as well, like, let them talk about that. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah, that's my biggest concern, is that it's not somehow closed sourced or some lock-in or something that you guys have done this enough, the point. But
let's take this offline. What do you think?
Okay, guys, I gotta go.
Yeah, please send me the PR. I think it's very helpful. Thank you so much, like all of you.
Thank you guys, everybody, this is great.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Thanks.